Hey everyone, it's great to see you. We're hitting the end of another month. We've had a really good goddamn couple months here. This has been amazing and just great. Well, and it's one of the things about our project, I think, that attracts the people that we do get to it. We have people who are not crypto first people because we're not a crypto first project. Like that's the reality. The way that we're going about things is we are games people, and we love games. We love storytelling. We love world building. Crypto is a tool. That's all it is. It's a tool. And like I always joke, no one in a, we're starting a website for community stuff. Excellent. How much as a community manager do you know about Apache? No one gives a shit about like what database is behind things. They care about how good is the experience, what can I get from it, and how much fun can I have? And so that's why when I talk to Val, and it's the same conversation I had with everyone else, it's your crypto needs are not the first thing. I need people who can make great experiences. In Val's case, people who I know can create and foster good communities. And we can have crypto people who specialize in crypto. And we have a lot of those, not just on our cap table, but we have a couple internal who are exceptional. And I think that, again, keeps us in a place of the experience first rather than crypto first, which, you know, I probably shouldn't have to tell people. I've chatted a little bit about my frustration in general with that idea of crypto being first. And we feel deeply impotent because traditional games, someone gets fucked out of their account, which happens all the time. In MMOs, someone gets phished, they get their password stolen, whatever it may be. But we can fix that. Like it's actually very easy to fix that, especially for people in the community like those who took part or have bought one of the 729 or the 81 that we really actually are part of our inner circle. And it has been, we just can't do anything. It sucks. It's a weird impotent feeling when you're usually someone who's able to be in charge of such things. And it's the downside of that decentralized, no central authority kind of thing that crypto does. This is the downside of the whole thing. It's quite frustrating. Hot wallets essentially are ones you're connecting with and working with all the time that are connected to the internet, sort of a MetaMask-y. Colder wallets, I would consider. The extreme version of that is I have a billfoldal with like a wallet that literally no one can touch because it's just this sort of hidden passphrase. But I also have, a ledger that does the same thing, that's disconnected, that allows me to, be very serious about confirming everything, seeing every transaction, and not having someone be able to sort of hack it in the same way. And it's important. Someone posted actually a very fancy little infographic about kind of the best way to handle this. And it is basically, not to sort of joke about it, but it's having every temperature, because you need wallets that are able to do things very quickly, that you have something in that you can be effective with, all the way to things you consider that are very precious to you. For example, the way that we're doing the 9, or how I'm doing my 81, that setup is very much for me about going cold, because I have no intention of selling anything. I know I think I have my 81 up right now for 500 ETH as a joke, but I'd be fine with that, I suppose. But it's much more about keeping things very much not connected to the internet. And I tend to recommend that for things you aren't intending to sell or you aren't intending to get rid of. It's very important. One of the great tragedies right now in crypto is security. And it is not security in what I would call the very traditional sense, where we have hackers all the time that are actually digging into accounts. It's one of the things about crypto that's kind of nice, actually, is it's fairly difficult to break into somebody's wallet. But that just means that every layer that goes on top of it is actually a point of attack. And the easiest point of attack that there is in the world is not actually hacking, even though it's what the term is commonly used. It's called actually social engineering. And that is where someone, instead of going and using code, like say on Mr. Robot, they do, like also on Mr. Robot, call a phone, send an email, do a little thing here or there that the person on the other side thinks is completely safe and instead completely screws them. And that seems to be the number one way that people are getting really wrecked in crypto right now, because it's very difficult to tell what is good, what is bad. It's one of the great shortcomings. I was having this conversation yesterday in Bordelon's Discord, actually, after my discussion with him. about kind of the need for a sort of overview and standards, so that way people don't get screwed, because it's happening more and more. And as people who are not crypto natives jump into this space, we will see it far more often. I mean, for us, we didn't have our money sitting in Ethereum. I don't like taking risks. I'm very much a bird in the hand kind of person. So as soon as our investment came through, it was in a bank account and in US cash, not USDC, just cash. And it's more panicked for people I know in the space. For example, when Terra was falling apart, Delphi is on our cap table. We know people who are connected to all of these different things. And I know people who have exceptionally large amounts of money in Ethereum who are on our cap table, who lost apparently sums of money that I don't even know if I'll ever actually have myself. So for us, I was less worried. I do not, and I still do not believe that this is like a permanent downturn. I don't think anyone does. The question is, how long is the downturn? But even if that's the case for our project, because we are not crypto in the way other things are, we are not dependent on the value of Ethereum. We're dependent on how people play our games, how much they love them. And when that happens, the rest of it becomes its own value. There's not the same play for us of having sort of this odd passive income, actually a security sort of behavior in a lot of this stuff. We're very much about, this is a game. This is you have to do things. You have to take part. You have to help people. You have to build things. You have to do things yourself to gain. And as such, I worry less about our platform in that sense. So we're lucky, but we have partners and friends and investors. And it's a stressful time. It was a stressful time to watch, for sure. And I know I watched people in the chat. I saw people saying like, holy shit, I just lost blank, or it's hard. Like I said, it's a heartbreaking, difficult time, to say the least. But we're lucky. Again, we're not a crypto first thing. We don't have to sit around. We didn't have, I mean, Christ, we didn't have investment from a handful of people that may have been a bigger problem. We're very lucky. And at the same time, we are very conservative. For us, every dollar, we want to make sure we're spending properly. We're not going to leave it in the marketplace. This isn't about speculation for us. It's about making sure people can build things. And so that's it. Like I would like to say almost we're too boring for it to matter to us. It's not as exciting. You know, we're sort of chugging along, I think, at the same pace. We've been slower to choose how we're going to build our chain than I'd like. I was hoping we'd have already settled and sort of been moving ahead, but the challenge has been, as we've had conversations with L1s and L2s, no one is that, crystal slipper that's able to be put perfectly on our foot. And we're kind of waiting for that. There's a few needs we have as a platform and a few things we want to make sure we're protecting against. And it's a challenge. It's a very big challenge. So those conversations are going slower than I want. But overall, the rest of the crypto market, everyone is kind of in a place right now, at least from my conversations. And if anyone, is having different ones, please type in the chat. I'd love to know. But there's a move away from, as I was talking about, that sort of weird passive income to like a deep utility. It's become a meme at this point that people are saying, it's not really crypto, it's the underlying technology, which is great to see, because that's literally what I was screaming about a year and a half ago. The move has been towards actually using the tech for what the tech is capable of, not this sort of weird, hyper speculative kind of Ponzi-nomics thing that I think people are starting to see fall apart in some horrifying ways. And I think this is just a culling. This is how it works. I've been through a few. I watched it happen with some friends in the internet crash. And then I watched it happen again with the social media crash, which followed kind of with the 2008 housing crash. Like, these are speculative, weird bubbles burst, and what emerges out the other side are the people who can survive it. And I'm very happy to say, with a handful of partners spearheading a very hard push towards that, using crypto for utility, using it for the actual tech, what it actually does, rather than just sort of tricky words that get people to throw money at us. again, we're talking about the culling underneath. What is the change that we're looking to happen? Crypto is mirroring the real world. This is how the real world and these weird investment cycles work across every space. Crypto just works faster, like psychotically faster, and is way more hyper reactive. So I think the implications will be negative, mostly for a while. Then the question is, how long? I don't think for very long, because again, it moves faster and it keeps moving faster. The shift is starting to happen. And as blockchain games that are wholly dependent on that weird Ponzi-nomics start being revealed for what they are, which has happened a few times and will continue to, then the people who are actually developing and doing their best to actually use the tech, I think, come out the other side, if not stronger, with an audience that has been through it. We have a lot of people, for example, who went through the boom and bust of Axie and saw the best parts and the worst parts of what that model looks like. And they're looking around. I think one of the things that attracted them to us is we're doing things differently and we recognize a lot of the same stuff. But there's other projects who see that and they've taken a slightly different tactic. Let's take the Futureverse guys, the Aaron and all those guys, Fluffs and ASM and Party Bears and all that. They're doing something very different than us, but it's also in reaction to doing something different than what people have done before. And anyone who's doing something different, I will applaud. Kieran with Illuvium, I will applaud for exactly the same reason. We have disagreements on some pretty fundamental things, but it's not fundamental in the same way my disagreements would exist with, say, well, without naming anything specific, without some strange Ponzi-nomic bullshit. And I think that is going to keep making a handful of consumers, and hopefully people don't financially get destroyed by it, more savvy. We're able to learn what does work and what doesn't work and what can withstand it. And that resilience in both the consumer and that resilience in the companies will actually, in the end, create stronger pairings of those two. It's one of the things I actually have been chalking up to what has happened with our NFT sales. We did our 81 and then our 729. And I am utterly blown away by the dedication of this community to it, but also the dedication of people outside the community who jump in, who see it, dive in, and just study their asses off, which is, given the way I talk and what I say, that's a hell of a thing to do. This is some pretty heady stuff I like to talk about, you could say. And so that, again, that resilient, hyper learning, wanting to know about what's happening, seeing the failures, being part of them, it makes you get up and start again. And that kind of mentality, I think, paired with the right company, I think we're going to see more strength come out of this, because I don't think this is a year-long bear market. I think it's going to be a brutal one for some time, but I don't even think it's going to last the year. I really don't. I don't think this is that long, even close. No, it's a very tiny, any community like this is tiny. I just had a meeting earlier today with a biz dev guy from a video game outsourcing group that we're working with. And it turns out we worked in the same building for a while. When I was at Lightstorm, he was working at Giant next door, working for Connie Kennedy. Like the tiny size of, as you start getting into what I would say is the sort of post-culling group of any one of these industries, it just peaks out. And you have these really small groups at the very top who tend to be someone's involved in everything else that everyone else is touching. And it's kind of hilarious, to be frank. Any of these industries get that way. I've been fortunate to work across multiple industries that have that incestuous. So kind of like I'm the string that kind of goes between them. And so as such, games people I tend to know a lot, film people I know a lot, at this point, crypto people I know a lot. Just whatever it may be, book industry, I know a lot of people. It's very strange. And, because of that, it's one of the things that again enables us to have, especially the group that we have as founders, but the rest of the group who's come on to work, they're extraordinary. And they all have that same sort of, they're part of it. They're hard workers, and they're able to sort of recognize that nature. And it's been really beautiful to have as part of that, this weird multidisciplinary group. I think the most recent for me is Dark Forest, and being able to see how zero knowledge proofs can be utilized on chain for game-like activity. One of the great challenges you have when you're building on this space is that everything is visible to anyone who wants to see it. So let's say we wanted to do like some kind of ARG. That all has to be done centralized, which to me defeats the ethos. If it's not centralized, it means we're building into the contracts the answer, which you can look at because you just can. So how do we utilize zero knowledge proofs in interesting ways? And there's a handful that are doing some really, really cool stuff. I've posted a few in the Discord sort of that I've been sharing, but I'd say like the Dark Forest stuff I find fascinating. Another recent one that sort of I've been playing with quite a bit are the topology guys. I think they're doing, what is it called? It's from the three body problem. Isaac, I think they're calling it, topology.gg. It's worth checking out. They're going to be hitting alpha soon. Conceptually, I find it really interesting. It doesn't really help us a great deal at this point, but I like people who are pushing things in ways that don't necessarily put money first, but instead put how the tech can be done, interesting things with the tech, because to me, that then can inform better how we can make more money, more happy people, and better experiences. And that's probably the most interesting one for me recently. Any of the zero knowledge proof stuff I find really fascinating. We've got $5 million and we got it from a lot of people. And there's a lot of angels, some who I've known personally for years, the art directors of Avatar, for example, the co-production heads, Dylan and Ben, who are wonderful. And I was really excited to have them on board, all the way to like, names Delphi Digital, Bitcraft, D64, Hypersphere, IOSG, 4RC, Mechanism, Jesus. We've got Dune in there, Tribe, Gumi. We got a bunch. I'm going to leave someone out and I'm going to feel really bad because we've got like on top of that, we've got angels from G Money, who's been fantastic. Santiago, who's wonderful. Stani from Ave, who's been great. Alex, who doesn't like me talking much about his investment, but like these people are really wonderful to us and they've been really good partners as we've gone. And I'm not even mentioning all of us, 49 total. It was a big deal to me as we went forward. Like it was early on, we met with D64. So it's like the Universe team, Barnbridge, Aaron, the Fluff team. And we sat down, I was talking with them and it was like, look, I don't need games people. I've got that. I don't need advice on how to build a game. I don't need advice on game mechanics. I don't need advice on entertainment. I'm not looking for that. I'm not like specifically what I need is people who can help us figure out how crypto really works. People who can help us and shepherd us as we make these choices and fill that out. I know I'm acutely aware of where I might say it's one of my talents. My own failings, it's a big deal that I find people that can do the things that I can do. The joke I make internally often is I can do everyone's job. I just would never hire me to do it. And that kind of, it belies the point, which is I want to find people who can help me make those choices. And the cap table is basically filled with what I consider to be some of the top minds in this space. And the people who, within a few minutes of me talking to them, understood what we were doing in a really interesting way. The closest we have to games people, we have Bitcraft in there, but we also have Ralph Reichert, who's the CEO and founder of the ESL. The fun story with Ralph is he's a friend of a friend. And long before I had talked to anyone else about this, I called Ralph and I went, I have this idea. And you're the esports guy. I need you to tell me if my idea is stupid and I should just stop looking at this. And I pitched it to him and he went, I'm in for 25. What do you need? And it was like, oh. And he ended up coming for more, which was nice. So the play for us has always been really simply find the people who can help us do the things we need to do. And the crypto people have been exceptionally good at that. And I think we've been good for them too, because a lot of them were stuck in the old play to earn mentality and chasing that. And a lot of the stuff we were saying would start to happen with a lot of these play to earn games started hitting a few of them very hard. And some of them were prepared. which was good. And I think we're continuing to sort of go that direction overall, which is nice. It would be. The question is, at what circle, because we've got circles coming, it says, so think of it that way. At what circle do we want non-native crypto people? We have a couple in the 721. I think we have a couple in the 81 even, who are like not crypto veterans. Generally speaking, what we want in that inner circle are people who are, we'll say, motivated or interested in being crypto type people who are into the metagame itself, which is what crypto ultimately is. So the onboarding now and what we want at sort of the leadership when we start, the tastemakers, the people who are going to be helping shape things, we want crypto people like right now. At some point, yes, absolutely. We want to make it so that way, you know, my brother who's less of a crypto person, if he wants to come in and he can go, hey, I want to buy a aspect, here's my credit card. That would probably be a lovely idea. We're not there yet because I think we have more crypto people we want to recruit because we want a stronger setup. The same way that we want gamers to play the games, we need the type of person that is, you know, I used to jokingly call them the hyper capitalist, but like the crypto savants, we need them in here. People who are aware of whatever the fuck the cutting edge is, because I can't be everywhere. None of us can. Taste making, understanding, pushing us in directions. These are the things we need for the time being. And that's, again, why we've curated this community, how we've done it. We've never done, and it'll be a while before we do, like hardline, huge paid ad campaigns on YouTube where it's like, oh, come check us out and blah, blah, blah. And like, there's a reason our Discord is not 50,000 people and we're not doing these weird, you know, giant campaigns to get 100,000 Twitter followers, because we don't want, we don't want bots, which is what those generally give, but we also don't want like sort of people interested. Like, we want engaged people, and you guys are really engaged. And it's one of the things, it's one of the reasons that we're going to be doing a lot more community activities, and we have a lot more stuff coming up for the people who are already here. And as we move towards the 4th and getting that aspect out, we've got a lot more coming for this community, because again, it's the enthusiasts are the ones we want first. We're not going to be the alpha of the game when it's playable. We're not going to be doing like a big ad buy on PlayStation. We're going to be going to core gamers and esports people. I happen to know a lot of them. We're going to be aiming at the people we know are the most enthusiastic, the people who are more apt to be honest with us and tell us when we're stupid. Many of you are happy to do that. We need that on every side for the time being. So at some point, yes. For now, no, not right now. Oh my God, that is a very complicated and fantastic question. I'm going to try to restate it. Does crypto do the charge ahead, information integrity is sacrosanct, don't touch it whatsoever, gets thrown aside because permanence and visibility are the most important things? And the answer is, like with any new tech, the answer is absolutely. But the question is, we don't know really where that line necessarily needs to be. And so it's currently just an overcorrection, because, you know, I wrote a paper a while ago. We've never had permanence as a thing in the digital space. People don't even understand how like images work. There's no such thing as like an image on your hard drive or on your phone. Those aren't things. Every JPEG is actually a container of random data that has to be interpreted. And as it's run through the interpreter, that's how the image gets displayed through your graphics processing unit. That thing isn't an image, not as we would call it. It's a process that produces an image through hardware. It's a mouthful, but the underlying thing there is to realize that group of data that is on your phone is never permanent. It is more akin to the teleporter in Star Trek, which makes copies of Kirk and kills the original every time. Every time you look at something, every time you move something, copy it. Like, we don't have permanence. And that's a thing we've all felt. It's a reality of the digital space. It's one of the great shortcomings of digital. People have written extraordinary papers on the impermanence of the digital. But because of that, there is an overcorrection to, holy shit, we actually kind of have permanence. And we do. it's a central tenet of what makes Nor. This idea of your soul, your aspect, the NFT that is you has permanence until we fucking kill it. Because if something doesn't have permanence, we can't really kill it. It's why permadeath is sort of permadeath. Like, it's why, oh no, I deleted those pictures. Well, I'll see if I have a backup of them. Like, whatever. Like, digital becomes so ephemeral, we don't care. So it's an overcorrection. The pushback, and it is already starting to happen, is like, okay, well, we've got permanence. Now we need other things, which is really fair. To say the least. So I do think there's a pushback that is starting to happen. And it's why you're starting to see, again, interesting plays in the zero knowledge space, interesting plays in the game space, interesting plays in DAO space. All these things are reactions to this, quest for ultimate permanence that are starting to add design around it rather than, just the engineer's wet dream of permanent data. Well, let's start with the shortcomings are kind of numerous. This would be the way to talk about it. My team, myself included, and Chris Shedkowski, who is our sort of head of innovation and platform, we both have worked on mass scale platforms, from federated identity systems to cloud gaming platforms to analytics platforms, from whole cloth creation all the way to shepherding it and helping redesign it. And we've done that in the traditional database space, the traditional way that these things work. As such, a lot of things that are needed for this to work, if we were to do it, say, in the traditional space, we could go do it tomorrow. But to go do it on chain, there's a great deal missing, because a lot of people have sort of been developing chains as a layer on, quite literally as a layer 2, but even Ethereum, like, I wouldn't say it's like a layer 2 of Bitcoin, but these things build on what's already there. Ethereum is a response to Bitcoin. L2s are a response to Ethereum built on Ethereum. A lot of L1s are actually a response to how Ethereum's built, and a lot of L2s. These things stack on themselves. And so that means that their development pattern is sort of coming from that singular place. We're coming from a very, very different place. We're coming from a place of the user experience, to the second question, being sacrosanct, and that if we're going to be successful, we can't just end up with a good chain that blockchain people are efficient with. Other projects can absolutely do that. For us, we can't have a nightmare of an experience for, say, an Xbox player. They can't, oh, excellent, I'm going to go ahead and sign into the game. All right, let me pull out my MetaMask wallet and, okay, enter my password. Okay, I have to go to my PC. Oh, wait, is this on my cold wallet? Okay, let me go get my ledger. Like, that is the end of the game. That won't exist. I actually don't even think it's going to be sustainable for most projects. I think there's a lot of shortcomings there. So for us, the UX challenge, I think, is probably paramount. And it's why we're running into so many issues, because a lot of these chains, UX is second, data's first, or transactions per second, or these other things that they're trying to solve for, which they're doing very good job solving for, but we're needing a couple extra steps. So the debate and the question internally is the mix of which one can we build on that is going to give us the chance to build the best things on top of, because no one solves all our problems. No one solves all our problems. That we are going to have to spend the least amount of capital to get it to a place that we're very happy with. That mix of questions is actually where we end up. And it's the great sort of debate that we're having, and it's the challenge we're having. A lot of L1s and a lot of L2s, they have some really brilliant people at the top. They're slowly building out developer relations teams. Most don't have what I would even consider to be developer relations. I come from video games where Sony has a squadron of engineers waiting. They have QA teams who are ready to look at a build literally anytime you send it to them and give you feedback from every perspective. Like, this is what I consider first party support. I've had to do away with a lot of that. That isn't really a thing in this space. And so it's about, our team, what we're capable of, we know our goods, and then finding an L1 who's ready to partner and help us build towards this very, very successful user experience focused chain, rather than where it's at now, which is really mostly for insider baseball. And I think everyone who's taken part in this knows exactly what I'm talking about. And it's one of the great challenges. There are chains solving it in various ways, and a lot of people are making bets on various ones, but it's all still to be determined. And I think that's one of the great sort of tragedies of the space too. I hope that answers the question. I can't go too much into detail because it's a bit of a nightmare. Well, I can't talk about specifically what we are working towards because one of the things that's big for me and the team is that we only talk about the things that we know we're able to deliver on. And we have ideas and we are working on things, but none of them are at the point where I can say, oh, this is going to be a thing. So that way you guys can then utilize that information to judge whether or not to be more involved or less involved in the product. I'm not going to do that garbage. The difficulty in specifically what you're talking about though, Glow, is there is no sort of standards board. I made this comment yesterday and I made it a little bit earlier. There is a serious need for actual standards in this space. And the problem with a standards group having sort of been part of one for VR and then watching what happened with Blu-ray from the sidelines and a handful of other standards is every time the powers that be are the ones who determine it. And that is the opposite of what we want. Like very much the opposite of what anyone in this space wants, because they are 100% incentivized to making sure that whatever comes out of that standard is something that they're able to monetize and that doesn't really disrupt their business practices. That Microsoft and Ubisoft, if they were to be on a standards board, say, are absolutely not going to do something that really decentralizes anything, because they really fucking don't want that. They really don't. I still believe they can make more money if they were to jump in, but hey, it is what it is. Instead, what we need to do is we need to figure out how to set up sort of a generalized language and a proper committee that is able to really talk through this and do it in a way that, sticks with the ethos of the platform itself. I hope that answers your question, Glow. It sucks. The short version is it sucks. We're working on things. We have a handful of partners we're talking to. Everyone's kind of still at this point making their way through like everything. And it's tough. No, because there's no language standard. What does it even mean when you click on a thing? There are NFTs that get sent to people that if you decide to sell them, it triggers a pull from your wallet. I was like, what? That was insane to me. You can't just delete NFTs from your wallet. You can't, if you burn one of these things, it wipes your wallet. Like, it's wild, the lengths people have gone to. And the fact that stuff isn't made clear, because it's not like at any point you click a button that says, yes, I would like to empty my wallet right now. How did you know? Like, no one ever clicks that. Instead, it's, I'll sign this transaction. They think they're signing a sign-in moment, and then suddenly their fucking wallet's gone. And it's insane to me that people aren't fighting more to sort of fix that. We will be, and again, my promise from the beginning, and it is, I just don't think I can state it enough, sadly, is at no point will we use FOMO in any way ever to sell a fucking thing to anyone. And this means that you can presume, if it seems like it's too good to be true, it is. You can always ask a question, because at no point are we going to fuck with you and be like, you better hurry and go get it. It's the last 5. Like, that's not it. The closest we came to that is we gave 2 weeks of warning and then another week of warning that the AMA mint would be happening when it was. That I don't consider FOMO. That's a 2-week warning period. So in those 2 weeks, you could have asked a million times, and you did. You saw us talking about it. Anything else, just ask, because we're not going to do that shit. You don't have to worry about that stuff with us. And I think, again, another standard that needs to become more standard. Generally speaking, I'm just going to say, yes, you're in the right direction, and I agree with you. I am a big fan of modding. I'm a big fan of community sort of being involved in that process. My one place I do sort of pull apart is the nature of tools tends to yield the different types of experiences that come out of them. People don't think of it often this way, but there is a difficulty curve that comes with every tool set used to make any game. or any user-generated bit of content. If the tools are very simple, you get shitty games because, and this is just the reality of it, the vast majority of people should not make games. That's just the way it works. It's the vast majority of people should not make books. The vast majority of people should not make board games, should not make dinner, should not make anything. Everyone's got the couple things they're good at, but not everyone is meant to do everything. But more my point is that the underlying thing, you end up seeing something like Roblox. Now, Roblox has a handful of really interesting titles on it, but go play all the games on it and just go see how bad they get. Conversely, you end up seeing something like an Unreal tool set, or with Warcraft 3, which is where Dota came out of with All-Stars, that the setup that was really interesting was it was actually a very difficult modding program. The layers were tough. It was janky as shit, to be frank. That tool set, by having that level of you have to be X good in order to use it, just sort of as a barrier of entry, is what enabled the level of mods to come out of it that let IceFrog find the shit that made Dota what it was. And that flow of things is what I believe in. It's about making difficult tool sets that are capable of more, that naturally filter out people who aren't willing to put in the time, but reward those who are. It's a mouthful to talk about, but that's when you actually get into the good modding scenes. An example kind of on both sides, Fallout and Skyrim have an entire modding scene. The setup, if you dive into it, can be exceptionally deep. The very shallow mods are garbage wall to wall. If you go check them out, it's horrific. The ones that actually take time, that people have put effort into and a lot, they're amazing. Like, there's actually some mods that I almost consider on par with, almost Morrowind level kind of complexity and storytelling. It's kind of amazing what people have done. That setup I'm big on. Now, to relate that to Web3, all of what I've just said goes out the window if you charge people to play in that space. Flatly. IceFrog was not someone who could afford to put $20 or $100 or $500 down in order to guess that he might be able to make something. Modding works because it's free. Free because it's open. Open because it's open source. This is a ethos that we as a company believe in, and we are working towards. It's why we're building not a game, really, our games team, but we are building a game. What we're really building is a tool set and a shared movement set. When we talk about early on, when we were starting our raise, it was like a month and a half in when Squid Game came out, and it couldn't have been more opportune. Why Squid Game works as a series of games. If I were to say, hey, I've got 9 games you're going to play, you would be like, well, can I practice them? And I'll be like, no. And you're like, but I don't know what the A button does. I don't know how movement works. I have to practice them. I'd be like, no. You'd be like, well, I'm not fucking doing that. Squid Game works because they know what the A button does. We don't talk about it that way, but they have a shared system. And that shared system is the real world. It's the thing that enables Michael Jordan to be a golfer and to be a baseball player and probably one of the greatest basketball players who ever and will ever live. That thing, he wasn't great at baseball in the same way or golf, but he could do those things. In Squid Game, people could move the same way. They knew how jumping worked. They knew how physics worked. The need for us to build, because we're building a sports style system and economy, we need that shared system. And so we're building that as we go. We're building this tool set that will enable developers who want to come and join us, or people who want to build on us, to start with something that already is there, that has a real feeling momentum as people are jumping and doing things and fighting and killing, and the tools to build different blocks together to enable that. But they're not going to be super easy because we need skilled people to be doing it. And so that's my sort of long-winded way of saying, generally speaking, I totally agree with you. There's some very specific nuances that are important. And of course, as much as I can, I want to push towards a Dota style mentality with anything that comes with us. Dota worked because it used the same controls and characters as Warcraft 3, which everyone had already learned. If Dota just came out of nowhere and it was like, I went to Dota 3 after playing Command and Conquer, like Dota 1 with after playing Command and Conquer, even that would have been difficult. Buttons do different things, movements different, attacking's different, animations work different. That system needed to be stable. And that's what we're building for people to work off of. I hope that answered, Trevin. It's a lot. Well, it doesn't affect the great overall roadmap. We have some minor adjustments that are coming to that. The movement of that and the push of the 4 is more about, how to put it. We now know that this is a thing. We were figuring we would have to spend a lot of time building our community towards getting to the point where we're at. We maybe, I guess, were humble, self-effacing, didn't quite realize how fast people would attach to it at the level they did. Now that we know we have those people, it's about making sure that the next time we push, that we are able to move from the 4th to parts of the 5th maybe, and then straight into, land, city, game, everything. That things are a lot more bam, bam, bam. So this setup is, I think, going to put us in a place where we're going to have more community activities, a handful of things happening over the coming month or two as we sort of start leaning into what is going to be a much harder press with a lot more activity when the 4th starts, as we just go straight up basically towards launch with a lot of things happening, if that makes sense. So it's a slight readjustment, but the overall timeline isn't actually shifting drastically. It's end of summer, maybe a month or 2 months, maybe 3. But again, because what we're wanting to do is not just this NFT release. We've got you guys. We're excited. We now need to prove the sort of next step and build towards a different type of release with the 4th. We didn't like a lot of the things that did happen with some of the botting that we got. We didn't care for some of the sort of, we saw our audience and you guys get a little agita and a little frustrated seeing some people just basically having registered a bunch and flipping them. We agree on all that. So for us, it's about building towards something that can do a lot more and that can do a lot more interesting things around the 4th, the 5th, and furthers. So that's how I'd put it. I actually do have a channel where I read multiple philosophy books. Sadly, I like terrible things. No, it's as one of the things we're actually going to be doing in the coming weeks as we start doing more community activities and we start showing you more of what we're doing and how we're thinking about stuff, is going to be a thing like the Brooks's Fiction Corner. It's not named TBD, where we actually go through, read a handful of passages, talk about various works of fiction, philosophy, critical theory, nonfiction, and really get into sort of some of the things that were deeply formative for the entire team. And so, yeah, we'll do some of that, but I'm always happy to read. I enjoy the books and I enjoy the talking, and it's a good combination for me for sure. But flattered, I'm not Morgan Freeman level, but I appreciate it a great deal.